Hey, 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 everybody. Great to see all y'all out there in Undercurrents land. Hey, we got a legendary one for you today. We are so happy today. Everyone's in such a great mood. We are so pleased to bring on the air today a wonderful person, just an absolute delight of a human being. Eric and I just are totally enamored with this person. We're bringing on today an original Dome person. We're not calling her Dome People because she's only a person, but we're bringing on the great I-Chele today, who's joining us, and we couldn't be more excited, especially since I-Chele actually disagrees with many of the things that we're talking about, as far as our interpretation of the dome and the way we're presenting it. But she's so agreeable that we just had to have her on, and we're going to have a conversation today, and we're going to find out a little bit about her and her story, and of course, hopefully she will let us know where she thinks that we are airing, ERRING, and we're just going to have a great old time today. So we got a lot to get to today, and so we're not going to belabor this intro anymore. Of course, I couldn't do this without my incredible research partner, and of course, one of the great people in my life and a wonderful person who I was introduced to roughly going on about a year and a half ago when we were all doing the Son of Sam stuff. You all know him and you all love him. May I present to you the one, Moet. I think you're going to want to get ready for this one over here. Eric Galati. Yes, Eric.
Manny Grossman, thank you. Thank you very much. And today is March 12th. In 7 days, not only is it St. Patrick's Day, but on that feast day, it'll be 2 years that our friend Manny Grossman did his first crime video, which was at the time, the first iteration was called True
Crime
Files, the Son of Sam case.
No, the Son of Sam cult.
The Son of Sam cult. And you were alone then. And it was March 17th. It'll be 2 years this Friday. It would be April, May, June, July, August. It would be 5 months and 6 days more till I came on.
Such a precise person.
Jason was with us. So that show yesterday went by like half an hour. It was rich. It was one of the richest shows we ever did. We cross-referred everything. We are being fair. Nobody's out to slander, to gossip. We are just speaking about something which is actually quite beautiful. The more I think of the two photographs that Alfonso Gavila took, and the more I think of that article you put from 1971, that it was a project that was not to last forever, but what has lasted is the drug culture. That's the tragedy, Manny.
Mm-hmm.
That's the tragedy. It really is tragic.
Well, maybe I-Chele has a few things to say about that. So yeah, yesterday's show was epic. I mean, it was a marathon, but yeah, as you say, it felt very quick going by when we were actually in it. And yeah, I mean, we definitely have our biases, no doubt. And and as I said yesterday, we're looking at this dome through a unique perspective. And out of all the people who disagree with us, I-Chele has been the coolest. I mean, she's been the only one who understands that we are looking at this from a different perspective, and you know, it's not the worst thing in the world. And where we go wrong, she is going to correct us. So
yes,
Eric,
we want that, and everybody is biased in life.
Correct.
No one's one-dimensional. But without further ado, all of our fellow crowd investigators out there who've been with Manny since 2 years ago this Friday, we have the Dome Babe, an exuberant, powerful woman, just as dynamic and energetic as when she was there at what would become Seton Park. I-Chele.
Yes, yes, yes. I shall.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome, I shall, and I have to say you are an absolute delight. We were so happy to make your acquaintance, and
Oh,
we
you
consider you
too.
a friend over here at the show. So I shall. Um, Welcome to to our airwaves. We're really happy to see you, and we got quite a lot to do today. We're gonna watch the Out of Space movie with you, and we are going to comment on it. But before we get into all that, why don't you let the audience know a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and all that kind of stuff, and we'll kind of improvise as we go along. You're a musician, so I know you're, and a performer, so I know that you're up to the task. So who is I-Chele?
Hello, everyone, and hello, New York. So, my name is I-Chele, formerly known as Michelle, raised in New York, and I've always been so happy to be from New York.
Oh yeah.
So, I started out in Manhattan, and we moved to Riverdale when I was about 7.
And
I
what
went
year was that?
Okay, I was born in 56, so that's probably like 63, something
Okay.
like that.
And
Might
was
have
that
been a little
in
earlier,
Devil?
Excuse me?
Was that Beaten Devil?
Um,
Riverdale?
uh, well, right near the dome. So,
Mhm.
I'm a little unclear exactly where. I've always heard that phrase, "spite and dival," is how I
Right,
said.
Spite and Dival. Eric's always pronouncing things like very specially.
Because it's exotic.
We love the
But
guy. But so you
so
so you grew up near the dome.
I grew up right near the dome. I lived on 231st Street, Fairfield Avenue.
Ah,
And
okay.
yeah, and you know, uh, my memories of the dome and that time period in my life, I want to tell everybody, I refer to that time period in my life, my teen years, all the time, because that's a time period I want to hold on to in terms of my mentality, my verve, my curiosity, adventurousness, and that you can't talk me out of my dreams. You couldn't talk me out of them then, and you can't talk me out of them now. So, that's a,
Irina.
what's that? I'm sorry. Uh,
Eric,
okay.
please mute yourself if you need to yell. If you
Oh,
need
did
to
Oh,
I
yell.
mute? Wasn't it you?
No, no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
oh, that's okay. It's like that all the time in the world. What? And someone's on their phone.
So
Somebody.
so so you were a very headstrong girl and turned into a very headstrong woman then.
Well, driven, somewhat
Driven.
driven, and just full of wanderlust. Like my mother said, my mother gave me a lot of freedom. What she said is, you were just so full of adventure. I knew there was no stopping you. And so, and as something with teens, we know sometimes you say no, 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 then everybody's just running around trying to do it. So,
Right, of course.
the psychology of, so that's my beginning.
I'm
My
actually
time in
curious. I'm actually curious. So you came to Riverdale in '63. You were 7 years old, roughly. So
Yeah,
you were pretty much fully conscious in that you have memories of that particular time. What was
absolutely.
Riverdale? What was Riverdale like before the counterculture?
Well, Riverdale always felt like a neighborhood. It was always. I knew a lot of my neighbors. Apartment building, hopscotch tournaments in the front of the apartment, the big yard. There was so many of us kids. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you're
Oh,
all baby boomers. It's like that's
Ring
one of the thing.
Alivio,
Ring
the
Alipio.
hopscotch tournaments were epic. I mean, and playing jacks in the hallways and, city kids. Um,
Did you
it
ever go to
was,
Seton Park before the dome? Like, were you familiar with that whole, like, wasn't that like a
yes.
hospital? Didn't it have like a old ruined buildings on it?
When you mentioned some old mansions, I was having memories of, they're sort of foggy memories, but I remember sometimes being a kid and we would be around some of these buildings and it was just sort of forbidden. There was gates. We went behind the gates sometimes, It was creepy and kind of fun. But I remember when I would walk through that field all the time.
Where
like
with the
it's sort
baseball
of an
field.
adjacent, you sort of diagonally walk through the field to
Right.
get to areas over by school. Um, I went to the same schools as you did, Manny, or you went to the same schools as I did. As
Right. That's the right way to put it. 24 and 141. Yep.
24 and 141. Yeah.
Yeah, which I
And
showed in which I showed in my last walk and talk. So, the audience should be fairly familiar with these areas by now.
and I
Uh,
walked that walk and talk with you and loved it. I mean, the familiarity and it's just incredible.
well,
And
that's
by
great.
that time, uh, the Steins had moved there from Wisconsin, right?
Ohio. Now,
Ohio. I didn't.
I do know Richie Stein and Buddy Stein from the Riverdale Press.
You know, Richie Stein, it sounds familiar. And if I really did know him and I'm not remembering, I hope he forgives me. I think he was a little older than me.
Correct. He's about 79 years old now, so I think he's
Right.
quite older than you.
But
So
what
he
I
was
wanted
more
to
like
point out,
Kaiser's age.
Right.
is that when you removed there from Manhattan, the Steins, according to Richie, had already made Riverdale something it had not been before by way of their newspaper, an actual united neighborhood with all the different wards of the Bronx interrelating, according
Uh-huh.
Well, not all the wards of the Bronx because the Bronx is
no,
huge, but all the
Riverdale.
wards of that
Yeah, of that
northwest.
part of
Yeah.
Riverdale, and he made Riverdale practically a town.
You
Like,
know that, and right. So when you say town, you mean like a sense of cohesiveness.
yes,
Correct.
yes.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
all of a
Which,
sudden, North Riverdale and Skyview was part of South Riverdale, and we were all part of this one big neighborhood. Spuyten
right.
Duyvil. Yeah.
Yes.
You know, this
Yes.
is my town. You
My
know,
town. And I walked from where I lived, which was right near the dome, all the way up to Skyview and those areas all the time. And in fact, one of my rituals was a pint of Haagen-Dazs, and I would just eat it while I walked, go through Fieldston, and enjoy all the mansions. And
Oh, you and I
I
sound very familiar. We would
yeah,
have been
I
good
just
friends.
loved it.
Yeah.
I didn't resent that I didn't live in a mansion. I loved walking through and just the beauty, and it was so peaceful. Like that was a beautiful thing about Riverdale was you could find some really peaceful places.
Right. I always loved it because you had that perfect mix of urban and suburban. We were only 15, 20 minutes from Midtown on the train. Well, 30 minutes from Midtown on the one
Right.
train. And yet we could walk in the woods of Riverdale Park and go down to the river. And so I always was very, very grateful and thankful that my parents chose Riverdale because the other alternative for me, I-Chele, was along the Van Wyck Expressway in Queens, where my parents were
Hmm.
looking for an apartment before they discovered Riverdale. But so that would have been a nightmare. But anyway, so yeah, Riverdale is a very special place, and
I shall.
so yeah, Eric.
I shall. What was Johnson Avenue like then when you were a child?
Okay, now when I was a child, okay, I have memories of my mom sending me to the grocery store or to the deli on Sundays, to pick up breakfast. That's more my childhood memories of, just being a bustling. I'd go shopping. You know, I started probably at about 14, hanging out. You know how we all hung out. And Johnson Avenue, we hung out on Johnson Avenue. And for anyone who is watching who remembers, there was an amazing store run by Norman and Rowe called Everything Nice. This was a head shop. It was full of posters. I remember a poster in there. What if there was a war and nobody came? This was the time of Vietnam. We were watching boys being drafted. There was some real things going on. I was on the young side of it, but I remember friends, older brothers. My brother's number didn't come up. He just got lucky that way.
Like
So
me?
it, uh-huh. Wait, were you, no,
Yeah.
you were never of age during the draft.
Yeah, I
You
was.
were, Eric.
I got number. I didn't even know what was going on. My parents were sweating away. I was up in Maine. I had number 256 for October 24th, and October 25th was number 8.
Oh, wow. I know. What luck of the draw. It
Mm.
was actually quite terrifying. I had some friends whose brothers went to Canada. It was quite a time. And what leads into this, is Norman and Roe. I babysat for their 2 daughters who are probably in their 50s now or early 50s. It's amazing.
It's that
A
crazy
team,
how time goes.
I can't remember their names exactly. I won't say them wrong just to make sure I don't say them wrong.
So there was
So
a head shop on Johnson Avenue.
a
Now,
head shop, and was Norman was another amazing adult and a proper man, really, really proper. And my time, I spent a lot of time at their house with their kids. I learned about cooking from Roe. Roe wore an essential oil called vetiver, really a unique bouquet to it. I discovered patchouli oil there.
of
Uh,
course.
and oh my gosh, I discovered I got clothes there, peasant shirts and dresses with flowers, and it was really wonderful. And Norman let us all hang out there. I was always creative in sewing. I'd always have a little sewing project or whatever. In the movie, you'll see the skirt I'm wearing. You won't really see it very much, but I was already starting to make my clothes. And Norman just let us hang out. And Norman actually gave me my first job of sewing to make some money. He had these little flowers and things, and then black velvet. And I made chokers out of black velvet. I sewed them
Wow.
on there for him, and he paid me by the piece. I mean, I had already been babysitting. I did know how to make a little money for myself. But Norman was amazing. And one thing I did with Norman is I went with him, and he took me to Washington, D.C. for a history-making anti-war demonstration at the monument. And I was either 14 or 15, and we could look up the dates. There were several of these demonstrations, but this was the one after My Lai. There was a terrible,
Massacre. Yeah, we actually it's
word.
interesting the connections, because when we were doing Son of Sam, we came across a doctor named Dr. Albert Laverne, who was a real strange kind of psychiatrist, and he testified in the defense of the guy who did the My Lai massacre, William Cawley.
And at this, at the demonstration,
Mm-hmm.
they made, if I'm remembering correctly, they made masks of the picture of that guy who headed up that massacre, and
Yeah.
and people put it up in front of their face, like we're all him.
Now, wait, wasn't he the enemy, or was the guy who did the massacre considered? Why would you say we're all him? I don't understand that.
Oh, because we were horrified at the massacre. The
Okay.
My Lai massacre was, on the front page, that epic photo on New York, the front page of
Right.
New York Times.
Horrific stuff. Absolutely.
Napalm, people running.
Yeah,
being,
the girl with the naked girl and everything.
I still remember.
Horrific stuff.
I remember
Absolutely.
that when it originally came out. It was in Life magazine.
Okay, Life magazine. Thank you.
You may not believe this, but I'm completely anti-war. I mean, I hate war. I think.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah, we should not be in any country doing any of this stuff. In fact, I'm totally anti-empire. So I probably would have been there with you at that rally. Yeah.
And it was people as far as you could see. And I had stopped eating meat when I was 14. So Norman, we went to a few of his friends' places. I met vegetarians. I mean, when I stopped eating meat, I didn't know vegetarians. It was more an emotional thing about animals. So, I had to find my way. Norman was an absolute gentleman. If he was a creep, that could have been his chance to be a creep. He was not. And I knew what creeps were. My creep alerts were up.
Now, how about with the other girls in the neighborhood?
As far, and we all talked. Never heard a word about Norman.
Okay.
Norman was amazing, and he died in his 70s in the last few years. I heard about it on Facebook, of course. And
now,
memory.
Two things about My Lai you might want to know. Recently, that gas line that was blown up by America, the Nord Stream up near Norway, that our country just blew up, that the Russians had. You know who revealed that? Seymour Hersh, and he was the one who did the definitive study and reporting on the My Lai massacre.
All right, Seymour Hersh,
And on the charts, it only made number 40 or something because of airplay. But in less than 1 week, a country and western singer sang a patriotic song, The Ballad of Lieutenant Calley, and it sold 1 million copies in less than a week.
So that must
And
have been a huge thing.
wow. And Lieutenant Calley was
He was the guy who did the massacre.
He
right.
was in
Okay, that's what I
charge.
thought.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And
Wow.
yeah, we actually spent a little bit of time on that during Son of Sam. Don't ask. Long and convoluted trail that we went through on that Son of Sam series. But of course, it led us here, which led us to you, I-Chele. So
Incredible. Who would have thought?
yeah,
And
never.
I've got to catch up on all your Son of Sam stuff. I understand the passion of true crime, and you know, I come it from an angle of like I'm always like, oh, how can we heal? How can we
Mhm.
heal? These are all schisms, childhood. You know, this is very deep stuff that affects the
Right.
whole world. So I'm kind of a lover. You know, I'm a lover of life, so that's my angle most all
That's
the time.
that's great. So now, when did Johnson Avenue start to become this huge hangout for what the Riverdale press called dopers, potheads? When did that start? Now I'm just saying what the
Yeah,
Riverdale press was reporting. I mean, I'm not making,
right.
I'm just
And you know, to tell you the truth, I don't recall. Okay, there was kids doing heroin, of course. You know what it is with heroin is the kids who do heroin hang out with each other. It's not. It doesn't create like a social um,
right. It's a loner type of thing.
paradigm, right? You just like people who aren't doing it don't tend to hang out with people who do it. It's not a mix. You know what I'm saying?
Now I'm
Now,
interested in who
That-
was doing I'm sorry, Eric. Let me just ask this quick.
yeah.
Who was doing the heroin primarily? Was it because you had two main groups in Riverdale. You had
uh
it's seemingly to me, at least in my day, the Jewish kids and the Irish kids, and there
and
weren't
Italians, you know,
and
there's
Italians.
like
There weren't any blacks back then in Riverdale.
very
Not that
few,
very
yeah.
few.
But you
And
know, I found him and hung out with him.
oh, me too. One of my best friends, Martha Washington. She was one of my.
Yeah,
I loved her,
but
and but
yeah, it was
But it
not
was,
very
but
racially
who
mixed.
was doing the heroin primarily? Was it like upper middle class kids? Was
It
it
was the rich kids.
the rich
I would
kids?
say, okay, I know of 3 overdoses that happened to people, or maybe 4, though one of them was way after I was around the person. But
Hmm.
you know, without getting too graphic, like I had this was a brother and sister who we had massive parties. They had a house with a basement and just you know, and the parents were always gone. The rich kids, the parents were often gone, and we
Hmm.
had these massive environments, you know, to hang out in.
That's
So
actually a
yes,
really important insight into the neighborhood.
Mm.
uh-huh, yeah. You know, oh my gosh, this one memory of parties we had. I mean, it was the den of iniquity. I mean, but it was really pot smoking, and you know, yes, we did do some psychedelics, but psychedelics are easily not overdone. I mean,
Oh, tell me about it. I'm with
I
you
mean, a
on that.
person who's overdoing that's a level that's,
Yeah,
you
I'm
know,
very open with
Mm.
my past drug use, which is a very limited quantity. I did acid when I was 21. To your point. I
uh,
did it 5 times over about 2 years, and I have to say that it was amazing. I got a lot out of it in terms of insights into my own personality and life. And then after the fifth time, I never felt the need to do it again, and I never have done any psychedelic since then. I feel like if that particular drug needs to be used when you're a little older and when you're trying to really find yourself. But yeah, I had friends who did it like 100 tabs a week, 100 tabs like a month. I mean, it's just insane.
I
Insane.
can't even imagine that.
Yeah,
I
my
mean,
brain is a psychedelic, so I never.
I went to Bronx.
That's right.
I went to Bronx Science, and that was known as a huge druggy school.
Well, intellectuals are attracted to psychedelics now. In terms of,
Right.
you know, I would say that, and what brought it to America was a lot of, you know, that's maybe a show in itself if we want to talk. It's not like I'm a supreme authority, but one thing, I was in Santa Cruz in the 70s when Dr. Hoffman, Albert Hoffman,
Oh,
Oh,
he was
yes.
the
he
father
invented
of,
LSD.
yes. And I'll tell you, he gave a talk. The place was packed, and then I didn't get in the building because it was already full. And then we all just surrounded the building, and they opened the doors so we could just listen. And
Hmm.
he was amazing. And I'll never forget. Can I tell you what he said? It,
Please.
well, because he was talking about when he was eating it sort of by mistake, and
Hmm.
he was riding home on his bicycle, and he said, everything suddenly took on a Spanish motif.
Yeah.
It was
I
precious. He was adorable. I mean, we
well,
were all
you saw all
Dr.
the counter.
Hoffman.
Listen, and we're gonna get to it a little later. You saw all the counterculture figures. Well, you saw the ones that were. You saw Buckminster Fuller. You
I
saw
saw Buckminster Fuller. And I think you all referred to us going with, as a group to hear him. In my memories, we went to Carnegie Hall. I don't know.
You said Alice Tully,
No,
right?
Alice Tully Hall is where we performed our. I
pieces.
was in an
You're
improvisational theater
right.
that did a performance called Pieces. We
Right.
performed that at Alice Tully Hall in one of their halls.
The article we showed yesterday on Buckminster Fuller was actually not the one referring to the show that you went to. It was a few years later. So if you remember Carnegie Hall, you said you remember Carnegie Hall?
I remember going to Carnegie Hall to hear Bucky.
Right,
But
right.
Was it
but
with
that
Richard and Pizer and other children?
I think so. I remember
Because
going.
Richard told me we went with our children. At first, you would think it was they had children from marriage, but he meant the children who would be with the dome eventually.
Uh-huh.
And he says he and Pizer took them to see Buckminster Fuller in person.
Yes, I was there.
And he
And
even did a dance trying to simulate a gyroscope. He said he was in his 70s and the man was just so adroit and flexible with his body.
I don't recall that dance. I don't recall that dance. So
Yeah.
if somehow I heard him another time, I mean, forgive me if
No,
I'm
no.
misremembering,
But
but
I got to say
but I
one
do know.
thing. You've given an important historical answer as to why others have said, no, there was never heroin on Johnson Avenue, because you've just said where the heroin usage was located and that it was also in at least in Riverdale at an upper class social strata, and
Well, those kids had some extra money that
Money to pay
right,
for it.
right. Well, that's why I'm saying other people like Mark Barron, who said there was no heroin at all, he's not lying, because it was never in his area to take heroin. You see what I
well,
mean?
right. Well, okay. And the
Oh, I
thing
thank
is,
you
it's
for
like
that. You've answered it.
you saw junkies. You'll pass by a junkie. Okay, we use the word junkies not to be offensive, but okay, that's
Even in Riverdale?
there was you know what? There was in some, was it in my apartment building or I used to always run down the stairs,
Uh-huh.
instead
Me
of
too.
waiting for the
Me too.
elevator, city kids.
Yeah.
And there was this guy, at the time I'm probably 15, he's 19. Like, in fact, I always saw that as sort of a divine thing. Like sometimes things were put in my view to see what not to do. Now, I was never somebody who was going for downers. I liked coffee. I liked conversation. Luckily, if I would have been attracted to anything, it could have been, upper kind of things. But I
Right.
wasn't self-destructive. I never was a pill person.
Now, I-Chele, may I ask you, hopefully this question isn't too personal, but you mentioned your mom a lot. Was there a man in your life? Was there a father? Did you have a
Yes.
father?
My parents were divorced, and I saw my father on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Was he in Riverdale?
He ended up living in Long Island, Freeport, Garden City.
Oh,
that's near me, not far from me.
Yeah. And my dad was, he mellowed with age, You know, he was
There's a story there. What does that mean? He mellowed with age.
well, you know, well, you know, he was a more my way or the highway kind of guy. He was,
Okay.
you know, my parents were Holocaust survivors. My father was never in a Holocaust. He left. He left his whole family. He begged them to come with him. They wouldn't. He got himself a job in Italy from Germany, and he left. But he was a young soldier. He was in Palestine. He was a sound, you know, from his stories, he was a fierce soldier in his time. So, you
Uh-huh.
know, he comes back and he's my way or the highway, you know, this kind of personality.
Right.
So he mellowed. I was always his, you know, sweetheart and his baby girl. You know, he was a little tougher on my brother. You know how some of those dynamics, you toughen up the son, and you know, um,
So you had a relationship with your father, even though
an
even though
absolute relationship. I was with him for his last breath. He
oh
ended up
God.
actually moving to the West Coast for
Uh-huh.
the last 10 years of his life and lived in the town I live in.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, I really got to enjoy my father.
Oh,
What
that's
was his
great.
vocation?
My father's occupation?
Yeah, vocation. You know, what
Oh,
did he?
yeah. So my father did interesting things. So he was managing theaters for a while, and I have childhood memories of being at the theater. He'd have me stamping envelopes in the office, and I
What
watched a
theater?
few movies I shouldn't have watched.
Wait, what theater?
Well, you know, while I'm 10, 11, 12. Okay, there's actually, maybe we can find it. So my father actually managed the Brooklyn Academy of Music
Oh,
Oh,
yes,
I
yes.
used
in my childhood.
okay.
And the Beach Boys played there and the Rolling Stones played there. I was backstage with the Beach Boys, and a picture of me ended up in some teen magazine along the way. And I saw it along the way, and I don't have a copy of it. But, you know, these things happen. And actually, I reunited with a long lost cousin who's 10 years older than me. And he has memories of my father. And he said my dad was driving the Rolling Stones around, you know, and it was just this epic thing. And I didn't really even know it till recently. You know, my father's Rolling Stones, Rolling Schmones. Who are these idiots?
Right, right. Like, yeah, who cares? Look, who are these
This is my
dirty
job,
who
and I got
yeah,
to
who
do
are these
it,
dirty hippies?
guys.
But all right, so
But
we're
then
having go ahead.
then he ended up like he was always good. Now I'm vegetarian, but my dad was great at the rotisserie. He worked in Garden City. He always was. He was Freddie at the deli. You know.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
All right, so we're having way too much fun here.
Okay. I
This
know.
is
I got
just
to
too
reel
much
it
fun.
in.
No. It ain't about reeling it in, but I want to take it back to the dome because
Okay.
that's why everyone's tuning in, and so I want to hit the dome, and we got quite a lot to do today. So I want to sort of ease on in. So
Okay.
how did you end up in the orbit of Pizer Edelsack and then lead us into the dome project?
So as I told you in my memories, I think I met Pizer at Riverdale Neighborhood House. He
Right. It
had an
turns out he
office.
was there in 1970.
Yeah. And you know, I had friends who lived up by the neighborhood house. I don't remember when I started going. I probably started going there as a young teenager because there was a pool there. That
Hmm.
was the pool, you know, that was the closest pool to me. And there was classes there. Um, I remember we were going to perform Hair there. I learned every song from Hair. We didn't end up performing it. I was part of an improvisational theater that I think we started there with Scott Redman, and we rehearsed there. And I became aware of Pizer there, you know.
And I think
Hmm.
Uh,
you should say what you told us. What I gather, you were a naturally born talented actress and dancer.
more actual, you know, yes, I was studying some dance. I had some potential with dance. I didn't have the devotion for dance that dancers have. Uh, but yes, I would say, you know, I was. Yes, I was. I
So
think
here, so here's Scott Redman and Pizer Edelsack. Actually, this was Riverdale Press, 1972. So just about the time when the dome was starting. And
uh-huh.
here's the pieces. This is what you were in.
Uh, uh, Life changing for me that of us doing pieces. And you know, Did you? I'm always hoping that that was the show had to be have been videoed by somebody. I can't remember really. I sort of remember seeing somebody with a video camera, but that was really a luxurious thing back then.
Yeah,
It had to have been videoed. I wonder if we can find. I've never seen it other than performing in it when we did.
that'd be wild if we could get that. But you had mentioned that you wanted to talk a little bit about Scott Redman. Um, Before we went on the air today, you had mentioned that you wanted to just briefly touch on this gentleman here.
Scott
Uh,
Redman,
what?
yes, memorable, epic. At the time, when our improvisational theater started, I think I was 15, and he was older. He was probably about 21. He was an amazing director. If anyone's watching or who remembers being in that theater, he always said, acting is doing. Acting is doing. And we would have theater games. We would do theater games and get into create scenes. And then as we went along, if we hit on a good scene, we would start scripting it. And that's what Pieces was our scripted scenes that we wrote ourselves through improvisation.
Mm-hmm.
And
So it was originally improvisation, and then it actually became non-improvisation. You took those
right.
improvs and then wrote them out, and then acted those out.
Exactly.
Okay.
We used very few props, like they maybe a telephone or a pad of paper or something. Very few props. We built these cubes that were black and white, square cubes, some parts black, some white, and we used those to create like our backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
We all dressed in black for the show. If I remember right, all us girls, we pulled our hair back. The whole idea was to become as sort of, just we became the story, but we didn't use a whole lot of props or costumes. Maybe someone put on an apron, very little. It was very sparse in terms of what we used to tell the story. All the story was really us acting out the stories. Some of them were quite emotional. We were teenagers dealing with teenage stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It
And
was very
this was all encouraged freely by Scott Redman.
Yeah, well, a little story when I remember we were mostly girls, and Andy was the only boy, if I
Andy
remember right.
Bursch.
Andy Bursch,
Okay.
and we found out one day that Scott was being paid to be our director. And suddenly we were like, what? He doesn't just, we didn't really comprehend that you might need to support yourself out there in life.
Right.
We're all
Right.
living in what, he's getting paid. He's not just,
So all of a sudden he became like the establishment to you
So
guys.
we said when he came to class, we were like, "What? You're getting paid?" And he was like, "Yes, I'm getting paid, but I love what we do."
It's interesting because I looked up a little bit about Scott Redman. He wrote a book that actually became very famous in certain social circles.
Oh.
Real men don't cook quiche or something like that. Or real. Do you remember that? It was like the early 80s. Real men don't eat quiche, or real men
I
don't
never saw it.
cook
I want to
quiche.
see it.
Yeah, it was a book, and maybe I'll buy it off Amazon. I'm on this trip now where I'm buying all these books like associated with the dome. But speaking of the dome,
Who knows
Okay,
what he
yes.
means metaphorically about quiche? If it's really quiche Lorraine, or he's using it as a metaphor to represent something else.
I don't
Yeah.
know. I think it was actually a cookbook. So who knows? But you got a
interesting.
point. All right, so let's get into the dome. And by the way,
Okay.
you have a big fan here, and Susie, who says, "Hi, I-Chele. This is great."
All right.
And Donna T, who I know that you were talking to in the chat yesterday. Very cool to hear this. And
Oh, nice. Thanks,
and
Donna. Hi,
yeah,
everybody.
we have the coolest audience out there in YouTube, and of course our moderators, the OG Ruby and Moet. They don't allow anybody in to ruin the time. So and by the way, we're gonna show your website at the end, your YouTube videos, and Ruby will put that stuff in the chat as well.
Oh, thank
I'll Yeah, we'll send that to you, and we'll put it all in the description of this video as well when we're done. So
Now, I forgive me. I'm seeing something. Something. Let me see if I can. Something's come on the screen here. And did you put that on, or is this the computer?
put what on?
There's some white thing in the middle of here. Let me. Can
We
you?
see you perfectly.
We see you perfectly, but if you're having issues, you want to log off and then?
It might block what I see. Mute me for
Oh,
a minute. Let me get my friend to come look. It might be something in her computer.
Surely. That way I can get a list I want, because I want to refer to people also that regards
okay.
you.
So we're gonna mute. We're gonna mute.
I'll be
you.
right back.
Okay.
All right. Kyle.
Irena. Irena. Irena.
Whoops, I'm muted. Sorry. So I was saying, I think I shall. Are you back?
I'm back. All's good.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
I was just saying how excited we were to have you here, and
Oh.
how it's taken us 40 minutes already, and we haven't even spoken about the
God.
dome. So we're gonna be here all night. So we better
Buckle
get.
up.
So I was muted before, guys. Sorry about that. I was just saying how excited we were to have I-Chele here. So I-Chele, did you get your everything fixed? You can see everything now?
Everything's settled. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So we'll wait for Eric to come back, but in the meantime, so lead us into now the Dome Project. How did this enter into your life? And then talk to us. Well, just tell us first how this entered into your life, and then we'll get into the granular details.
Okay. Well, the concept really was teenagers need a place to be where they can be themselves, not to be just self-destructive, but to be creative.
See, now I don't understand this. Hold on. I'm already.
Yes, and I want to talk to you about you not understanding that. Okay.
Okay. All right. So talk to me. You already know what I'm going to say.
I already know.
The
tell me.
secret word is this. I'm a professional actor, and I did 3 plays with a beautiful theater company in England, Quercus, adult thespians, actors and actresses with children. We did Shakespeare, but it was professional, beautiful, and the child would relate and learn acting by acting with us. But you've used the term self-destructive. I think that's what hit Manny.
What? I don't understand.
That's what overuse of drugs can be.
No, you just wanted to ask her.
Oh.
And she said that they said this will teach you not to be self-destructive.
No. She said we needed a space to be ourselves, and that's one of my pet peeves with this whole thing, because I had plenty of space to be myself. I was myself. I went to the woods. I was myself. I went to my backyard. I was myself. You even had the Riverdale neighborhood house as a place where you could be yourself. So what? So push back on this a little bit.
Okay. Well, certainly it wasn't a lack of like places. And as we know, Riverdale was, middle class to upper middle class and even to wealthy, that it wasn't a lack of necessarily physical space, but to be able to be super creative with more than just a few people.
Mhm.
I mean, in the Dome, we performed pieces. As you know, we performed another play that was written by a guy in town who had just come back from Vietnam, if I remember right.
Mhm.
And it was just like, and it was a next level from the Riverdale neighborhood house, because that was, everything was there. And the Dome was, we could look at it as a more concentrated place of creativity, not necessarily, I don't know how to explain it, but it was, I know that, I called a friend of mine who doesn't want to necessarily be talking to you guys, but he was one of the assistant producers of the movie. And
Okay.
his artwork is there, all of us, we were very creative, and a lot of us stayed that way. I mean,
Mhm.
people went on to be successful maybe with other businesses, but it's a bunch of musicians that still play music,
Right.
people who I've stayed in contact with. So that was so it wasn't it was I think you know I think it was part of the time. I mean, this was such a time culturally in America of the Vietnam War going on. This whole, I was a little young, but realizing there's people going back to the land and living in communities. And there's a difference between communal and community, like a communal house. And I've been to some of them and stayed at them, everybody living in one big house. But there
Mhm.
was a lot of I was hearing about this when I was at the Dome and very interested and eventually went to find all that. So it was just this blossoming time of creativity and Pizer, you have to remember he was a young man at that time. He was
Yeah, actually, how
26 to 27.
27,
I
that's what
mean,
I was gonna ask.
he was young too.
So
So,
the idea of having of having a place that you could call your own wasn't let me interpret this and then ask you if I'm correct. So the way I'm getting it from you is that it wasn't that you lacked space in Riverdale. You had plenty of space. Everybody
plenty of space.
right, but it was just that you didn't have a place where you could go to do creative things that was yours.
Yeah, well, I mean, when the possibility of building the dome happened, it was just like, oh my God, okay, yes. I can see in Pizer's mind of like, wouldn't this be incredible? What a great project to actually have these kids build something. The thing about city life and city kids is we don't, there's a lot of things like I didn't know flour was wheat ground up until I ended up at a grain mill
Mhm.
somewhere. You just don't know till you know. So um, it was an amazing thing to build something. Who of us had a chance to build? Now, Mark Barron, by the way, I have wonderful memories of him. He was a friend, and obviously he was a part of that building. It seemed like he was enmeshed in the building part. He was from a family, I think, of people who did some building, because I
Actually, I
remember
want to get
there's a wood shop in his house.
there was a what in his
A
house?
wood shop, like he helped me build a wooden box that I made for my boyfriend.
He
uh, you
told us
know
that he told us that he was brought by Pizer to a rich person's house on Palisade Avenue. That Pizer brought him. I don't know whether there was any other kids around, but Pizer brought him to a rich guy's house on Palisade Avenue to try to get money for the dome, and that he built a dome out of like balsa wood and a few little things. And Eric was very impressed by that.
Yeah,
Is
I
this
really, I'm sincere. 3 feet high, he said it was, not tiny, because I wondered what the size was, because he said we could carry it around.
is
Then
this
when
Mark Barron?
that's Mark Barron. What a handsome young man he was. I'm sure he still is.
but then
He
you
was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful guy.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, Eric, we cut you off.
That's all right. So it was 3 feet high, I-Chele, and the way Mark was speaking, you would think that you were reading quotations from Buckminster Fuller in the article that Manny had that was in the late 70s by Fuller about how it could be built and taken and carried to be transported easily. So it was quite impressive. Do you remember hearing of any other of your young adolescents going with him there, or who that home on Palisades Avenue might have been?
No, I don't. I have no recollection of a meeting like that. And
Mhm.
quite honestly, I am not remembering the mini dome that they built. You know,
Uh-huh.
I don't recall I don't think I was part of it.
Oh,
And,
Mark's in the chat.
oh, oh, Mark, do you
So,
remember the box you helped me build?
well, we're going to show something
Uh,
that of Mark's here. Actually, let me get that up.
Mm.
Give me a second here.
Thank you, Mark.
He told us about this in the in
I
the
know, and yes, and you know, that just shows you about Mark. I can't say I knew who Billie Holiday was when we were building the dome. You
uh-huh.
know, shows his eclectic taste. He had a maturity about him and a depth.
Well,
And
we looked up Mark. His mother was actually a very, very famous, well, I don't know about very famous, but a pretty respected and well-known artist shown in the Smithsonian and everything, named Hannelore Barron. And
oh,
so clearly he came from an artistic background, is what I'm
And
trying to
yes.
say.
he deals today in Asian art, specifically subcontinental Hindu Indian art, seeing
Oh,
rare prints that are absolutely beautiful. I asked him if he knew the father of a friend of mine who had brought Asian art over in the at the turn of the century. But he's very cultured. He's a cultured man, but the way he spoke was exceptional, and I'm not putting it on. It's true.
my memories of him are such a deep soul.
So
And
you were so you were an original Dome person. I'm sorry to interrupt. So you were an OG, an OD, an original Dome person.
yes.
And so how many people were in that core group of ODs, of ODPs?
Oh, well, I'm 25 to 40 or something, 50. I
Okay.
mean, there was a bunch of us.
And a question that I have, because remember, I'm coming at this as a sociologist, a cultural anthropologist, someone who's interested in all this stuff, especially since I grew up in Riverdale, different generation. My
Hmm.
time was my time was the 80s and the 90s, but we had, and I'm hearing whispers of this in the dome story. We always had uh, issues, let's just put it that way, between the Irish kids and the Jewish kids in Riverdale. There was always butting heads. St. Gabriel's kids versus the 141 kids, and so on and so forth. Was this original Dome group, the ODPs, the original Dome people, what was their ethnic and cultural and religious makeup? Was it mainly Jewish kids or was it a mix?
I think we were a mix, tell you the truth.
Okay.
Now, of course, I didn't take part in much of that. That stuff did happen, and you heard about this and that going on. But like, I hung out at the monument also. Like, you all referred to the monument. I don't remember a bunch of, crazy drugs there. But as I said, if you're not doing them with people, you don't tend to be around it. So
Yeah, exactly.
it
I
really,
I grew up across the street from the monument. My father was well, we moved in to that building in 76. So that was a little bit after that this time, but my father would have been one of those people complaining about you for sure,
oh,
definitely.
yeah.
The
And
difference between a
his
heroin addict and one who smokes pot or takes LSD is like a pickpocket who would run away from a murderer. That would be like the difference.
Wait, run that by me one more time. I want to
The
make sure
difference
that I get
between the
that.
reason why other people who took dope, marijuana, or LSD and one who did heroin is like a pickpocket who would never want to associate with a murderer.
I think I understand
It's a
that.
different level of drug use. Potheads don't hang out with junkies
Right.
for the most part. Right,
It's
exactly.
true. It's true.
Now,
It's
one of the things I want to clear up here about the dome, and I'm going to ask everybody who comes on because we're getting different stories here. Richie, specifically about these tents and staying out at night. What was the deal with these tents and staying out at night? How long did kids stay with adults, not in the same tent? I'm not trying to imply anything, but were kids in
uh-huh.
one tent and adults in another? How long did this last? How long did kids stay out for? Was this a 1 day thing and then no one ever did it again? What was the deal with what we're seeing here?
You know, I'm a little, I don't have a particular recollection of staying in a tent at the site, but I lived quite close there.
Right.
And so it's not really in my real distinct memories, but um I never, as I told you, my creep alerts were always up because
Hmm.
they had to be. And I never I don't have any thoughts about it
So there
exactly.
was, so there was, so it's just mainly that you don't remember
I don't
this
really
particular
recall a big thing about the tents
the tents.
or ever thinking, oh, that doesn't look right, or that doesn't feel right, you know?
Right, right. Because I mean, we're getting different things. Richie Stein said the kids stayed out one night and one night only, and then there was a thunderstorm and nobody did it again. But meanwhile, we're hearing from other people that no, this was like they would have parties. They would be like people hanging out in the tents, and everybody would chill out at night and smoke dope and weed and watch the that nothing got stolen. So we were just interested if you had a an insight into this. Eric, ask the next question because I got to go close the window. It's getting very freezing in my apartment. I'll be right
that's
back.
right. Now about I-Chele.
Yeah.
Did you travel to New England at all on the camping trips to New Hampshire and Vermont, respectively?
I was definitely on the Vermont trip.
Aha.
I don't think I
I-Chele
went.
was on the Vermont trip, Manny.
Oh, right, the Vermont trip that Mark Barron went to, the camping trip.
Yes.
Okay.
And
My
what was that
first,
like?
oh, it was incredible. Sitting, sitting around having oatmeal around the fire, the oatmeal cooked on the fire. For city kids, I mean, this was monumental. It was really fun. And if I remember right, uh, there was more kids than adults. I think there was a few other adults. I don't know if Scott came with us. Pizer definitely was part of it. And, the attitude was like, listen, you kids could get into some mischief, but we won't be able to do this again if you do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like if
Mm-hmm.
you want to really be able to do this, just, act right. And
And you didn't see
you know what
anything
I'm talking
untoward,
about.
right? And you didn't see anything untowards with Pizer and any of the kids.
Never, never, never. Truly, truly never.
I mean, we
I've been
have to
to
ask these
Pisces.
questions. We
And,
learned so
I'm
much in the
happy
last.
to
Yeah,
I'm
we
happy to answer. And I would be honest,
we
And
know
the
you
thing
would.
is, yeah. And
Yeah.
all us girls, we talked. I think if it would have been happening with anybody I knew, in terms of something. Now, if somebody, sometimes there's some illicit thing with a younger girl and an older man, and everybody they keep it quiet because they want to keep doing it,
Right.
kind of thing. With
Right.
I never heard of any of that. I just never heard of anything like
What
that.
about? I mean, this might be an uncomfortable question, but what about from the boys?
Never, never, absolutely never. I never did.
Okay. All
So,
right. That's fair enough. Now, here's a question that I have just to clear up. We were originally going to start with the movie, but it just makes sense to kind of go through some of these photos for because it's kind of feels more natural. Now we misidentified this person, and Richie Stein took us to task. All of a sudden, I think he was like trying to say that everything we said was BS because we misidentified.
I read his comment.
Yeah, I mean he was wrong about a few things, but I thought this was Tom Martin. But who was this?
Well, at first glance, I would think Mark Barron, but I think that's for Mark to confirm. I'm not sure if it's not Mark Barron. I'm not sure.
Why I thought it was Tom Martin is because he's physically fit and he did judo. He survived by being in the martial arts.
But if you look at this picture, Eric, this is Tom Martin, and this person clearly looks more adult than that other person. But a very similar look, a very similar vibe to them.
Very similar type of look.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, we made an error like all journalists do. We make errors and we correct ourselves. But and so Pokey SD says something that, is important to put in there. This was before stranger danger, and it probably wouldn't have been unusual for the tent activity or the trips because adults were trusted authorities.
Agreed. And I mean, it certainly wasn't before, all those schisms. I mean, those schisms have been happening. The kinds of things I'm saying I don't remember, but we know can go on.
Right.
That's been since time immemorial. But this was truly, if any of that was going on, I had no idea of it.
Now tell us a little bit about Pizer as a human being. Like, he looks very dynamic here. By the way, who's this? Do we know?
I would think that's Mark Barron.
I can actually put it to, hold on. I can actually do that so we can see it a little bit better.
And is that
it? That's
Is that a
barren.
guy or a girl? It's almost you
I
know,
thought it was a girl.
and I'm not sure. If it's a girl, I'm not sure. The long dark hair always makes me think of Mark,
Right,
but
right. So talk to
I'm
us
not.
about Piser's vibe. Piser as an individual.
Pizer, I would say Pizer was sort of like a Zen-like person in terms of he wasn't the kind of person of like oh that's terrible or oh that's horrible. He would be like handle it, you know.
Hmm.
He was very zen. And now he had been to India, if I remember right.
Hmm.
One thing he always said, if you're going to give somebody like a stick of incense, give three of everything. That was some custom he learned about, I guess, in India.
That's where he
I
was with the Peace Corps in India.
Yeah. And, in that time period, it was more like when I was 16, I started getting interested in some of the Eastern philosophies. So we
Hmm.
had that in common. Like, he had been there and I was getting curious about that place. And, just some of the things that were affecting me that were based in over there. So he, as you could see, he was right there with us all the time. In fact, he was really an amazing person. Something he and I did once in a while, we'd bring some bread and cheese and go sit by the river and just talk about everything. I would talk a lot about, my aspirations, what I wanted to do. He really encouraged me about my creativity. He knew some of the ins and outs of my family life. I had a beautiful family life, but there were some complications that
Hmm.
he knew about. And he always just said, follow your creativity, just follow your art. That's always what he told me. He never guided me wrong. He,
Hmm.
he, he was he was sort of a no nonsense person. He wasn't one to gossip or, get in those kinds of mixes. He
Now the
wasn't
one, I'm sorry, he
he
wasn't
he
one.
wasn't a divider, is what I'd say.
Right. Now the one area that we're finding a little bit problematic with the dome is this whole issue of, we showed yesterday, we established that the dome was actually, the inception of the dome and the original idea of the dome was to get kids away from the drug scene on Johnson Avenue. And by all accounts, the drug scene just moved over to Seton Park. There was no stoppage of the drugs. Richie Stein in the obituary says that Pizer was a major abstainer, was totally into abstinence, complete non-tolerance of drugs. But then we have Tom Martin saying, "Oh no, Pizer was very cool. He said it doesn't pay for me to tell you what not to do." And then even in the New York Times article, it says that if people smoked a joint, we just said go over there. And then Mark Barron was telling us that there was weed everywhere.
Mark
So
Barron said, if you're going to do it away from me. And then he said every evening, everybody would kind of, I guess they'd say, get hip and smoke marijuana in the woods away
so
from.
what was right? So what was Piser's? Let's just get real. What was Piser's real attitude towards drugs? Forget about what it said in the paper. Forget about any of this stuff. What was the real deal when the rubber hits the road?
Well, I'm trying to really dig into my memories. I don't remember him talking about them a whole lot. But, the attitude would have to be like, first of all, we were teenagers. You can say, don't do this, don't do that all day long. That's
Right,
not necessarily going to accomplish anything.
right. I get
What
that.
I, yeah. And what I think his basic take was like, if you want this to work, there's things you can't do here. Everybody knows. Now, I did smoke some pot, and then I actually stopped when I was about 15.
Uh huh.
And later, when I was more of an adult, I smoked again.
Right.
But so I wasn't this big, huge pot smoker. Yes, I did do some pot smoking, but I don't really recall even a whole lot of pot smoking because if I wasn't smoking, I wasn't running over to wherever everybody was to smoke.
Right. I mean, it's a very interesting to just speak to everybody involved because as I said on the yesterday's show, this isn't one story, and this story doesn't belong to any
Right.
one person. Everybody
Right.
has their own unique perspective, and we're finding similarities in some people's stories and some differences. But hey, look who it is. I think that unless I'm mistaken,
Oh, that's moi.
there we go.
That's you?
Damn, I was cute.
Oh,
So
yes.
talk to us about what's going on in this picture here.
So in this picture, okay, so the process was the fiberglass fabric was laid um, on the triangles of the wood. What kind of wood was that again? You know,
Just plywood, yeah.
plywood. Thank you. And then we would do the resin on top of the fiberglass, and the resin would melt the fiberglass into itself, and that would create the waterproof coating on each triangle.
Hmm.
And you know, the only criticism I could say about that is we all should have been wearing masks.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. This is some toxic stuff.
No,
Toxic.
people were not like that back then,
We just, you
unfortunately.
know what? I don't remember discussion about it. And knowing that Pizer did die of lung cancer, I mean, you know, we know fiberglass is very toxic just
Right.
itself without the resin. I don't want to say that could have caused it, but you know, um, but he was there every day. He was there every day.
Now, two
Mm.
Yeah.
questions about it being there. Was the architect Richard Lee Stein there? Because he was the architect of it. Was he there present when you were building it, or did was he or had he already departed as a conscientious objector to live in Delaware County?
You know, because I don't have so many memories of Richie, but in the movie, there's a part where Pizer says, "Richie, I want an orientation," and I remember hearing that many times. It would be Pizer going, "Richie, I need an orientation,"
Well,
and but you know, because everything was A's, B's, and C's of the triangles. You know, the whole thing was a big puzzle we were putting together. I
right.
just did what you told me to do. I was not at all the brains in the A's, B's, and C's, and
Well, not only that, but you fell asleep on the job.
Yeah.
right.
And Mark Barron, did he seem to have amongst the youth a dominant presence in putting it together and knowing what to do right there?
Oh, you know,
I would say
I don't
so.
know.
I don't want to speak
I don't
for him,
know.
but we have this picture. Again, let me just quickly get it here. It looks like Mark Barron was pretty heavily involved. I mean, here he is pouring concrete with Tom Martin,
Right, he was. He was. And
and
he was just a solid guy. He
Where is
obviously
Barron there?
right here, the
that's him
long.
for sure.
But these arms don't look as muscular as the boy that we saw with the shirtless before.
Well, you know, you are who you are. You got what you got, and you just
No. But we thought that the really buff kid that we saw without the shirt
oh,
before was Mark Barron, but these arms don't look nearly
oh,
as
I
as
see.
as
Right.
chiseled. Let me get back to that picture. Actually,
Yeah, get back
That's
to
Tom
that.
Martin in the
let me
back.
find it. Yeah, that's Tom Martin in the back. Let me get to the picture of the kid with the well, that you what could only be described as a very good body. Here we go. So you see how these arms are like chiseled out of
Right.
stone.
Yeah, that's somebody else. I think Mark would agree with us.
I think
That's another kid.
I wonder if Tom Martin. I heard Tom Martin had a brother that worked there. I wonder if that's him.
Oh, it could have been. That's right.
We'll find out. We'll find out who these people
Now,
are.
I you said fiberglass. This brings up something. Uh, Stein told me when I conversed and interviewed with him, I said, "How did Alphonse Gavila get involved?" And he said that Mr. Gavila, Pisa spoke to everybody. He liked everyone he met, he would speak to. And he observed Gavila doing fiberglass with motorcycles and said, I need this, I would need you to help us with the dome and the fiberglassing. But yet Gavila says he doesn't even remember anything about that. Do you
Oh,
remember Alphonse Gavila working there at the dome, overlooking the fiberglassing of it?
not necessarily. I remember Alfonso very well, and mostly I remember he gave me a motorcycle. You know, he was always on his motorcycle, And he gave us all rides sometimes, you know.
Mhm.
And that was my first time ever on a motorcycle, was with Alfonso.
Here
Yeah,
he is.
there he is. And
He's
he
gonna
was
be
lovely.
he's gonna be our guest in 2 weeks.
You
Did he
know,
wear
I
a
have
helmet?
that. Yeah, watching that show.
I'm
Did he
sorry,
wear
Eric.
a helmet, I-Chele?
Say it again. I'm sorry.
Did he wear a helmet?
Do I? When I rode with him, I can't say I remember putting a helmet. He might have had two helmets. I can't, you know, I just can't recall. I can't recall. But we were not riding our bikes with helmets. I mean, you know,
Yeah, I mean,
the helmets weren't a big thing.
who were these two people?
Let me see. Now, this woman, the woman on the left, I keep thinking that what could she possibly have been Susan Piser's wife? I'm
Well,
trying to remember her.
Richie told us that was his wife.
Yeah, he told
Oh,
me
okay.
it was his wife, and Pizer was not married at the time. He told Gavila that he didn't want to get married, and Rich Stein told me that she was away. She was never here. She was away traveling through Europe.
Okay, and you know that's I don't remember that or not remember that. I have memories of Susan because I had dinner at their house a few times. Um, Susan was a good cook and she cooked exotically. And I had Pizer built his own furniture, by the way. The furniture in their house he built.
Oh wow. I think this
Yeah.
is Kevin Tierney. I was told that this is a cat named
Oh,
Kevin
okay.
Tierney.
Okay,
Is that
that sounds right. That
is
sounds
this
right.
is this Kevin Tierney?
That sounds quite possibly right.
We
Yes.
we we are going to get in touch with him soon. He told me to email him, and I'm really interested in talking to the Irish kids as well. That's why we're so excited to have John Scanlon on, because again, I want to explore this whole this whole issue of rifts between the Jewish kids and the Irish kids. I'm just interested in that.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Were you guys ever accused, the original Dome people? Were you guys ever accused of being cliquish or clannish and not into outsiders?
I don't recall that. I don't recall that. And I you know, I've always been a social butterfly and, you know, I
Right.
just didn't even think in those terms. But you know, if you think of the time it was, and you know, it was uh, you know, this whole sort of the blossoming of the hippies, and you know, this we love the love lifestyle, you know. So I would say that was maybe more of an attitude. It certainly was more of my attitude, you
Hmm.
know, just curiosity and interest, you know. Different interested me, it didn't repel me. And
Do you remember there ever being fights at the Dome?
I don't remember fights at the Dome. I really
Hmm.
don't. I don't.
So here we have another picture. So
Uh-huh,
so
there I
now that
am.
so now the Dome is complete. You guys are in the Dome,
We're in the Dome.
and this is you right here.
That's me. We're having a rehearsal.
Now
And
who rehearsal for what?
I believe it's where you're scrolling, the guy with his arm up. I believe
Hmm.
that's the guy who wrote the play.
The
We
Vietnam
performed the
vet?
play. What's that?
The Vietnam vet?
The Vietnam vet. I believe that's him because he wrote this play and we performed his play. And I
Hmm.
don't know if Scott directed it or not. I'm a little foggy on that.
Remember the name of the play?
I don't remember the name.
This is Tom Martin right here. You can
That's
just see.
Tommy. That's absolutely Tommy. That's the Tommy I remember.
Yeah. Tom's a good guy. I mean, we really like him.
Me too. I visited him as an adult. We've stayed in touch.
Yeah, I have almost an hour and a half with him on tape. I'm looking to get that aired at some point soon. All right, so I think we've shown enough pictures because we're not going to sit here and look at every picture and comment on it, because that would.
But by the I wanted. Oh, may
Go
I
ahead,
interject one thing?
please.
Just that the picture of me sleeping at the Dome.
Oh, let's look at that.
I know you both thought that picture had some inappropriateness.
I
because
thought it.
I was short.
I'm thinking.
Eric didn't. I thought it.
Okay, and it's totally it's totally fine to think that. I remember I first saw that picture probably about within the last 10 to 15 years. I never saw the Dome book. You know, when I left, I left. And, you know, I think I knew about the Dome book way before I saw it. But
Mhm.
this picture never bothered me, even though I understand what you're saying. I mean, you know, but I think it's just so poetic, like asleep on a piece of plywood by a stack of plywood at the building site, you know?
Uh-huh.
Mm.
It's just devotion.
I see it more or less like that, as rather innocence that's tired and boom, finally sleeps. But Manny, I'm not opposing you or anything. Don't misunderstand me.
Listen, who am I? What
Well, no, it's a valid thought. It was a totally valid
because
thought.
listen,
Like when
remember,
I look,
photographers always have reams of negatives that don't get published. So I
That's
just wonder, like, you know, it's just my thought here.
wasn't there a better shot? Yeah.
Or yeah, exactly. Or, you know, like how many other shots were taken anyway, but yeah, I mean, I just was wondering like what the deal was, but maybe it's just my mind, you know, like,
Well,
but
you know, the thing is, we have to, you know, we have to be protective of the children. The thing is, I think this also showed, listen, I had, you know, if I wasn't really comfortable around all those people, I don't think you'd have seen me that relaxed. That
right,
shows my trust.
right. All right. Well, listen,
May I
on
ask
that. Oh,
about
please.
another play? Do you remember the child playwright Michael Shapiro? He wrote The Live Adventures of Will Robin, and that was a play directed by Scott Redman.
Oh, it's not a, you know,
You were a
maybe it's a
prom.
slight
You were
memory.
one of the prom princesses and dancers.
Oh, I don't, that might have happened after I left.
No, you're in it.
I'm,
Yes, here you're
oh,
listed in the cast, and here's your fellow castmate.
Let me see if I can find that while you guys are,
well, that
Uh,
must have been the
oh,
play that the
it
guy
will have a
wrote.
name. It will have. It has her full name: Heidi Stonier, Olivia
Yes.
Sklar, Monica Sasnovitz,
here we go. I
Oh
got
my
it.
gosh.
Lori Lerner.
I'm
But
going to get that right up in a second. Hold on.
but
I got
then
it.
one young lady was a prom princess and not a dancer. Carol Wolf, the Carol spelt C-A,
Oh, Wolf. Oh my gosh.
and one dancer was not a prom princess or Lisa Aaron. But you were put first probably because you actually could dance also.
So this was the play. This was the play that the Vietnam vet wrote.
But
So
oh,
this is the live.
really?
The Vietnam vet was Michael Shapiro.
But
It must
Mr.
be.
Stein told me that Michael Shapiro was a like John Rosen was a photographer, cinematographer, adolescent. That it was a boy. Michael Shapiro was a child who wrote the play.
Well, he was, you know, my recollection is he was a little older than us, but he was young too.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't have called him a boy.
Right. And, you know, look, we're asking you to
And
remember
from my
something from,
perspective, he was an older,
right. And we're
you
asking you
know,
to remember something from 50 years ago. I mean, geez.
right.
But
But
here
you
you
know,
are.
I remember I was in Pieces and I was in this play. You see, this is a very distinct memory because I started being in the play with everybody. And then something happened where I was going to maybe travel and have to leave the play. And I told you the backstory of it. It had to do with, but I won't go into the story. But I decided to not take that opportunity to travel then, and I stayed and did the play. And then I left New York like 9 months later.
Mhm.
So I was in the play. I was contemplating quitting it to do this travel opportunity that my mother begged me not to do. And so then I acquiesced to my mother. I stayed and did the play, and that's my recollection. So if I'm remembering wrong, you know, but that's
No,
my
there's
recollection.
nothing wrong with what you said.
Yeah.
You know, you recollect and you don't recollect, and yeah, great. And do you remember Scott Redman, how he directed it? Do you remember anything about how he?
Oh
Uh,
yes. Well, I remember his girlfriend actually, and I keep coming up with the name Iris. I don't. She's not who he married and had kids with, I'm
Lisa
sure.
Rifkin.
Lisa Rifkin was my good friend. Lisa Rifkin, an incredibly talented person who she did stay close to Pizer all the years. I didn't have the opportunity to stay knowing her after I left New York, but it was a huge part of my teen years as my friend. Um, I have memory after memory of Lisa Rifkin. She was quite creative.
Mhm.
We
When she
had great.
told me, "Oh, Alfonso Gavila, I love him. He was my boyfriend," but it was all innocent. She
Yeah.
was much younger. We would take our motorcycle ride.
Oh, did you ever go up to Untermeyer Park with anyone?
I never went to that park.
Did you
I
hear
never
of
did.
anything happening in Untermeyer Park?
I never did. I never did. And I'm aware of, in terms of like satanic stuff and, that kind of thing. I I remember there was, when I was, it probably was junior high school before we all ended up in different high schools. I remember hearing about a few girls, getting into wearing a lot of dark stuff and romanticizing the pentangle. And I
Mhm.
always knew I wasn't interested in that.
Did you ever
But
go
I
down?
remember hearing about a little bit of it, but never really saw much of it, or,
Wait a
it
second. Wait a
wasn't my
second. You remember hearing about satanic stuff where?
of just like girls that I didn't really know who had gone to my school who are hanging out and romanticizing.
And
Um,
this
you
was
know,
this was in Riverdale or at Untermeyer Park?
this was in Riverdale, and nothing to do with Untermeyer Park. And
Right.
I wasn't around them particularly, but hearing about it, like,
Did you ever go
um,
down to Van Cortlandt Park and hear of anything weird happening in those woods?
my memories of Van Cortlandt Park were childhood with my dad. He
Okay.
took
All
me,
right. So yeah, you wouldn't have been there for the for
but
this.
I, uh, yeah, that's it. Those are my
Right. You wouldn't
memories.
have seen the child sacrifices. Yeah.
But 19,
No, and oh my God, yeah, I'd
oh
be
wait,
talking about it. Oh my,
Yeah.
1963, you came to the Bronx, Riverdale. Do you ever remember of a murder being reported in 1965 when you would be about 9 or 10 years of age in Van Cortlandt Park?
you know, I can't say I do, but I remember as a child periodically, like when your mom and her friends are talking, and there might be a reference to something terrible that happened, and it was always like just
Mm.
kind of but I don't have distinct memories. I don't have distinct memories of that.
All right, guys. So listen, we I have a feeling we could be here all night. And although I would love that,
Put a tent
I don't
up.
I don't think yeah, we'll put a tent up.
We're all
I don't
adults. Nobody can accuse us of anything.
I don't think that the people in my apartment will appreciate it so much. So I wanna move on to the movie
Okay,
because a picture tells 1,000 words. So let's watch the Dome movie together and let's comment as we go. And I shall please, if there's any moment that happens when you want me to stop, just yell out stop, stop, okay? Because
okay.
otherwise,
I'm
because
gonna
otherwise,
want you to stop when we first see me with the wheelbarrow. That's for sure.
please, yes, I'll
Okay.
stop there for sure. All right, so everybody get ready to boogie. Hold on,
All right.
before we do, I just want to set it up so it's like properly seen big. Whoops, hold on. There we go. All right, so everyone, let's dance. I shall dance. It's a funky bass line. I should pick up my bass back here and play along.
Yeah.
Oh, oh yeah.
I think this is Scott Redmond's music.
I think John Rosen did the music.
I work with kids now, and I see them
That's
trying to grow up
Pizer.
here, and I don't see.
Okay, now that's Pizer. So she said it first.
That's
I hope
Pizer for
I
sure.
hope Richie Stein is listening. because he made a big deal in his comment.
That it was
That
Scott
wasn't
Redmond.
that wasn't even Pizer, and you said it was
Well, I think
Pizer.
they're talking to each other. Well, let's listen.
I mean, this is clearly Pizer because the guy said I'm working with children. All right, anyway, go ahead.
Here's the music, Andrew Lackow.
And then
Right.
Kevin
And
Tierney.
Andy Lackow. Oh, by the way, you know, at the monument, they have reunions at the monument that I haven't been to when I haven't been in New York when one's happening. But reunions happen at the monument periodically.
I gotta
And
go.
Andy Lackow has helped those happen.
Here we have
He's,
Tommy Martin here. So I'm going to talk to Kevin Tierney, and I'm going to put this band back together, and we're going to do a remake of this song. All right. You think I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. All right. So let's let's carry it on. So let's listen to what Pizer says. And I-Chele, you know you're my girl, right? But I have big problems with what Pizer's saying here, just historically. But we'll let it go. We'll let it go. I've already commented in another video about it, but let's carry it on.
A lot of room for people to grow up. I see a lot of pretty things and a lot of things that a lot of adults want.
There wasn't a lot of room to grow up when I was here, you know.
Is that Scott Redmond?
That might be Scott. I think that's Scott.
Okay.
Yeah, but maybe there was a little more. I mean, I don't think the apartment buildings had come in yet, and I don't think that the real money had, you know, established its lifestyle here in such a way that it was, you know, really infringing on the rights of young people.
Well, that's true. I mean, it wasn't as incredibly prominent as it is today.
See, I have a big problem with that. I had to stop. Sorry.
Okay.
Because not only was Riverdale incredibly prominent back then, but this Dodge family that financed all y'all, that was started with copper mining money, they had been in Riverdale since 1856. So there was money established in Riverdale. I don't understand this. Maybe it's just the fact that Pizer was from California. He really wasn't from the neighborhood. He didn't know it very well.
Well, but what? Okay. Let me correct my thoughts here. I think what was being talked about, it wasn't what it was about the culture, the cultural time we were in. This was a time of just wanting to be able to expand our horizons and, you know, think new thoughts and do things new ways.
Mhm.
So that it's not that your living room wasn't nice or you didn't have a television or, you know, it was, and it wasn't, hey, a lot of the people, you know, it was a lot of the kids who went back to the land were from middle class families. It's not like they were running necessarily away from what they didn't have. They wanted something else, which
Right.
was more encompassing of your body, mind, and soul.
Right. Okay. Good answer. And we'll
Okay.
and you know, totally legit as far as I'm concerned. Okay, let's carry it on.
I mean, I don't see young people having a place to be or a kind of just a space, an emotional space, a conceptual space to be human beings in, to be respected.
Well, why would, you know, that these teenagers need that kind of space in a community with this much?
This much what? This much wealth, this much consumption, this many buildings, this many lawns, this many parks, this many schools, this many private clubs. Yeah, it's got a lot of those things, but what about, you know, the cat on the street?
Can't help it. That's some funky conga drumming right there.
I love it. I love it.
I wonder if that's Tommy because he has a set of congas in his basement.
That would be really good to find out. I'd love to know.
I'm
that.
putting the band back together.
Values have to be respected, and that's
There's
the thing
Johnson
it looks
Avenue,
like.
by the way,
There has
right
to be
there.
some space
Yeah.
within those values for new
Oh,
values
yeah.
to develop.
Oh, cool. We
We
can
don't
hear
look
each
to young
other over
people
this.
for
This is
some
good. I'm going to
leadership.
lower the
We're
volume
just- we're
slightly of the
gonna
movie, and I'm going to bump you up a little bit.
Can a teenager
And that way we could just talk right over it.
Those two
Yeah.
guys are speaking a lot of crap.
Maybe not. I think that a teenager shouldn't have to share.
Wait a second. Hold on. So those
Those Pizer and Scott or whomever else are speaking a load of crap. It's it's the typical I'm going to be blunt, subversive.
Okay, let's
Up
ask
and
Seth.
why? Because that whole thing exists because the elite money people who were there historically, old American money, was supporting all of this.
Okay, all right. Let me understand what you're saying. You're saying that the quest for wanting to, you see, I don't think to create a space that was for ourselves to be creative in was like to say, we hate you. We just want this too.
Not you. Not you. What he's saying, there's a manipulation there.
Hold on.
Okay.
Please paraphrase what he
Rewind.
said, because I'm not
Yeah.
following this. And if I'm
He's
not following
he's
it, the audience isn't.
manipulating everything. They don't have emotional expression. It's as if we're dealing with people who live in limbo or who are zombies. And he says, what is this? Being wealthy? Is that what life is? When he shows the homes and everything, when it's wealth that was backing up all of
True.
this.
Pizer was being funded by a foundation grant, and he was working for the Dodges. I mean, ultimately, he was working for the copper mining people. So there is a little bit of hypocrisy there. I got to agree with Eric on that.
And who is it that's the literary authoress of the eventual Dome People book? A person who comes from 3 elite families.
Ruth
Mrs.
Rhea Howell.
Ruth Howell,
Uh-huh.
Ray, and she's also related to the Dodgers and her husband to the Hunts.
Well, you know,
I mean, you're talking about wealth that's way up.
right. Real wealth.
Yeah, and
Real-
I-Chele, I'm sure you had no idea about this. You were a
Of course,
13-year-old.
I had no idea.
Right.
But like,
I
even,
love the Dome Project, I-Chele. I love it. It's what I don't like is the manipulation.
You see, I don't hear that in what he was saying. I'd love. Could you rewind that?
Yeah, sure. How far back?
Just a little. Yeah. Where he's starting to.
Before the homes.
The cat on the buildings had come in yet. I see a lot of.
Right from there.
Okay. All right, let's listen and then we'll comment.
Kids now, and I see them trying to grow up here, and I don't see a lot of room for people to grow up. I see a lot of pretty things and a lot of things that a lot of adults want.
There wasn't a lot of room to grow up when I was here,
Yeah, but maybe there was a little more. I mean, I don't think the apartment buildings had come in yet, and I don't think that the real money had, established its lifestyle here in such a way that it was, really infringing on the rights of young people.
Well, that's true. I mean, it wasn't as incredibly prominent as it is today.
I mean, I don't see young people having
infringing on the rights of young people when they created everything for the young people and the adults.
Right, but I think it was coming from a point of view of like where there's all these expectations. Okay, you go to school, you go to college, you make something of yourself, but that the soul wasn't being attended to. What are your dreams? What is it? What is it? Not only that you should do, what is it you want to do?
This is actually what you say here. Now, taking the judgment out of it, it's a vast sea change in the way that adolescents and teenagers were dealt with. Before this, no one cared about what the teenagers wanted or their space or any of this stuff. Just go to. I mean, in a way, I'm kind of supporting what you said, but this was very new concepts. No,
right. Right, but if you think of the time period we were in, in that time period of just this absolute blossoming of alternativeness, and also knowing some of what we're dealing now was coming down the pike.
Right. All right, let's carry it on because we're going to be here all night otherwise.
Okay. Yeah. Time management.
Or a kind of just a space, an emotional space, a conceptual space to be human beings in, to be respected.
Well, why would that these teenagers need that kind of space in a community with this much?
This much what? This much wealth, this much consumption, this many.
Sorry to stop. They're actually having the same discussion that we're having here. If you think about it. Yeah. All right.
Buildings, this many lawns, this many parks, this many schools, this many private clubs. Yeah, it's got a lot of those things, but what about, the cat on the street?
That I have a problem with because that just makes no logical sense. Yeah, but what about the cat on the street?
Who is the cat on the street? Who is the cat on the street?
Well, the kid hanging out.
All right. Now I can get that from what I-Chele said.
We were hanging out. There was bunches of us.
I think I just saw Lisa Rifkin.
Oh, I missed.
She's in this movie like crazy. She sticks her middle
I
finger
know.
up to the camera.
I know. That's great they put that in. You're so Lisa.
She's very angry at us, I-Chele.
Values have to
Oh,
be
I'm
respected,
sorry to
and that's
hear
what the
that,
community
but
looks
you
like. But
know.
there has to be some space
There's
within
Johnson
those
Avenue.
values
Looks pretty much
for
the
new
same
values
today,
to
except for
develop. And if we
corporate.
don't look to young
It's all
people for
corporate
some
now.
leadership,
More
we're
corporate,
gonna
like
die.
everywhere.
It's gonna
Yeah.
become a decadent thing.
Can a teenager accept anybody's territory but his own?
Maybe, maybe not. I think that a teenager shouldn't have to share his territory. I mean, what is a teenager? It's just somebody who's not something else. I mean, I don't know that we have to call them teenagers. They're young people, and young people need a place. And just as their parents have bought these fancy homes and these big buildings and put plastic on the couches and color TVs in every room and air conditioned the place till you think you live in a refrigerator, it's like, I think kids need a place to be productive and a place of their own and a place to begin to discover who they are and what they want to be.
And that was the dome, right? I'll just lower this as we go along. And that was the dome
Right.
project.
That was the vision of the dome.
That was the whole impetus of the dome, a place for the kids to go. And who was that red-haired kid?
He looks familiar, but I can't place it. I don't know.
Retrospectively, there's a
After
lot.
you finish fucking with it, I'll probably go back shooting dope.
What'd you say?
Retrospectively, with what we know now, there's a lie being told because he already knows it's not going to last.
But
I
I
agree
don't
with
know that
Eric.
he knows that then. I don't know.
No, he
that
did. In
He did. We were
1971, he was present. There were meetings in 1971 that this would not last. Let them have fun in a place that's been trashed with weeds and everything. And even his wife said it was never meant to last. So why all this effort? Why all these pronouncements, this propaganda and everything? We've got to take them away from drugs. And then what? You abandon them? They're behaving just like what they accuse the middle class wealth to be doing later on. They have nobody then.
Well, my perspective is so from the time I was there, and any of those declines and Pizer not being part of it, I never experienced that. But actually, like, really in perspective, looking at it, just simply building the dome, like if we would have built it and then just taken it apart, it would have been an enriching experience because it was just an amazing thing to do. It was an experience. I mean, in the movie you'll see me pushing a wheelbarrow. When did I ever have a chance to push a wheelbarrow?
They only get into trouble.
sorry. I'm just gonna keep it playing as you talk.
Yeah, keep it playing.
Fathers maybe
So
look like they have nothing.
Well, I agree with you, I-Chele, because you have an artistic temperament like me and like Manny. You the creativity of the moment. You seem to me, and I'm not putting you on, to be apart from an inner mindset there. You seem to actually be present with the beauty that is there and not everything else. That's why you venture off on your own throughout the world. The others didn't.
well, some did, some didn't, and you know, like when we've talked about the decline of the dome, which I never saw, but I went, wow, that is sad to hear if that's true. But by the way, I mean, I called and referenced my friend who was he was the assistant producer of this,
Mhm.
and he is an extremely honest person. And I was like, did you ever see a bunch of heroin around the dome? He's like, no, when we were there, this is not what was going around. It was not, that was not happening. We were really rehearsing. We were having shows.
Right,
We were-
right. No, I
That's
totally
really
get
what
it.
we
There,
were
there,
doing.
there
There
definitely
was
seem,
pot smoking. Okay, but but it was,
There-
it
there
was away
definitely-
from them.
right. There definitely seems to be different eras of the dome. The first
Yes.
era of the idealistic era, and then Pizer leaves and the place turns into disarray.
Now,
Not
I-Chele, did you not tell Manny and I by telephone that Pizer would only show up to see what was going on? He wasn't always there. Was that you?
No, that was not me.
Was he always
I
there?
recall him there a lot.
He
You
was
recall him
always
there a
there.
lot.
Now, do you remember them calling Ellen Mintzner the directress of the whole project? Do you remember
I
that?
don't recall her at all.
We're getting close to a certain scene.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Someone's going to be seen pretty soon. Who was that?
My debut.
Hold on. We're going to get there, guys. I like this song.
I like
I
what
like it too.
Gloria just said.
Look at this. This is beautiful.
I remember in the
I
beginning how
I think
we
this
used
might
to
be John
wake
Rosen
up in the tent
narrating.
that we were using to
Okay.
camp out there.
But
take
I'm
He
not
says
sure.
camp out
blueprints and
there. He
figure
just said
out
they
on the
camped out
soil
there. And there's Pizer.
That's Pizer. Yep.
exactly where all the foundation poles would be. We started out digging by hand and just with shovels. And it seemed it was a little hard to do it that way, and we got some picks and people would chop up the soil and then dig it out. And once we ran into rock, we got pneumatic hammers, I guess they are, and went through it.
Those kids weren't doing anything. I mean, let's just be real.
Family dog.
Everybody, here's the woman of the hour pushing a wheelbarrow.
Okay, one thing I want to tell you, the skirt I'm wearing, I made that skirt.
Oh,
I
no
started
kidding.
sewing my own clothes. My mother was a seamstress, so I had access to fabrics.
That's great. And you look so
Yeah.
happy and positive here.
I was having a blast. And I'm standing there. That's me standing watching them work. You see me there?
I can't point on the screen, but the second from the right.
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
that's me.
Do you remember Ruth Rhea Howell and Arlene Strong?
I can't say I remember them. I don't particularly remember somebody shooting photos, you know.
Well, you were asleep.
Well, I was awake for a few.
There's Pizer on the
Pizer.
left.
I mean, you could see in the movie he was always there working. I mean,
Well, he was there in
no
the movie.
slouch.
He was there in the movie. Let's be fair.
Well, right, but the movie was a composite of days and days of this stuff.
Oh, okay.
Now this is amazing. A kid with a chainsaw.
Yeah. I mean, this is what I love about the 70s, to be quite honest.
I know. I mean, the mother in me now is like, what?
That's fantastic.
I don't even want a chainsaw near me.
I know.
I use a chainsaw almost every day.
Really?
Really?
Well, in my gardening, I'm always cutting like little trees down.
Oh,
this makes
yeah.
no sense. Why didn't they use a chainsaw here? I mean, this looks like there's
Right,
Kevin
but
Tierney.
you know, hey, the kids wanted to be busy. All right, cut the log. And you know, and also I've done sawing like that with another person in country life. It happens.
By the way, I wanted to quickly. Alphonse Gavila told me that this is him in the foreground, Eric. So he was there right at the beginning of the dome, not with this fiberglass stuff. He was there right from the start. Here he is, right here. That's Alphonse Gavila.
Yeah, he had the afro.
And that looks like Mark Barron.
That could be with the long dark hair, though he looks, you know, he looks a little lighter than I remember.
Lighter, right?
Right, and that's me there. That's me in the background holding the board for her.
Is that you right now?
No, it was the shot before.
Mm-hmm.
And then measured exactly where everything would be.
Someone in our comment section on the last video. And by the way, guys, we have this entire video up on my site. You guys can watch it without the commentary. So that's why we're not worried about putting the volume up. They were like, "Look at the pentagram. Look at the pentagram. Oh God."
Stop. That's taking things too far. This is structure of a building.
I agree. I agree 100%. What people don't realize is that we're not conspiracy theorists here. We actually spent 2 years in Son of Sam getting rid of the conspiracy theory, and we got a lot of heat for it in the true crime community. And so you know, even though we have some I don't know, some hypotheses about the dome that are informed by some things we have heard, which are going to come out in 2 weeks when Alphonse Gavila comes on. Yeah, we are not into conspiracies here. We're just not into that.
A second great chat by Book Club Warrior 22. The first is such a beautiful compliment.
Hold on.
To I-Chele.
Let me find it. Oh, right here. And
Yeah.
Book Club Warriors are great. He's a former NYPD.
Yeah, it corresponds to what I was saying about.
Thank you. Uh-huh.
And now his second one is spot on.
I believe there was an innocence. Yeah.
Listen, as I said, you can't have dark without light. You can't have sickness without health. You can't have good without bad. What we're seeing here is very good. But
oh, there I am again.
Oh, there you're on the right over. Yeah.
Yeah.
What you know? Look, I'm looking for the grit, I-Chele. You know that.
I know you are.
There's Alphonse. There's Alphonse. So he was there before the fiberglassing.
Yeah.
He'll be on in 2 weeks, guys. He's got a very interesting story about Pizer. Yeah. You're going to hear the exclusive live on the air. I'm not telling anybody anything about what Alphonse has to say about Pizer. There's Kevin Tierney.
Good.
You guys put it up wrong?
Can we pause here? Because I remember when you all did your commentary, and yes, we put it up wrong. It turned out it had to go up 3 times, the skeleton. And you implied like, "Wow, these guys so spaced out." But you know, if you think about it, this was very complex. I mean, you know, one little mistake in a strut down below, you know,
True.
Missed. Just one little mistake. This was an effort of such devotion and love. This wasn't people being spaced out and you know, acting like, oh, whatever. Really, right. I thought that was a misinterpretation. I wanted to lovingly say.
No,
Fair enough.
I agree
Fair
with
enough,
you. I agree with you about that. The only reason why the darkness seeped in is because of what we have been formed by others.
Yes, John Scanlon has a you know, somewhat revealing story about Pizer's psyche, and Alphonse Gavila is gonna tell us something that's gonna make people think a little differently.
And we're not even looking for that. It came.
It came to us.
There's nothing malicious.
Well, I'm curious. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, we're fine. We just have the volume off because we don't need to hear all the soundtrack. You know, we're having a good discussion here. But you know, I-Chele, I was in the dome, as I told the audience. I was in the dome probably as a 3 or 4 year old. My mom used to take me to Seton Park, so we probably just walked in there one day, and I remember lying down, so I must have been in a stroller. And I remember looking up at that right there at the ceiling and seeing like plexiglass, what looked like colored plexiglass, like red and purple. And that image has haunted me for my entire life. And that's one of the reasons. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm so obsessed about this.
Hold on. That's Ricky Sperber. Ricky was a great drummer then. He stayed a drummer. I saw Ricky play in the Village about 6-7 years ago. It was my last time seeing him. And he died. We lost him. He died in the last year or two.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Ricky Sperber, a really special.
Was he a solo act or with others?
He was a drummer, so.
He was a drummer. Yeah, always in bands. And when I saw him in the Village about 6-7 years ago, he was with a band.
Did he play ever with Andy Cohen, a bass player?
Andy
It's
Cohen,
really
that's so
aspect.
familiar,
I really,
but
I'm sort
maybe
of impressed with the way the work's going
that
so well.
I'm not sure, but
And
that
it's
sounds
sort of
so
nice to see a lot
familiar.
of people around that you've seen
There's
before all
Pizer. Is
over
that you?
Riverdale,
There's Pizer.
doing all sorts of
That's
weird
not
and odd
me.
things.
That's some. Is that me? No,
Apparently all
no.
seem to
That
have
hair's too
No,
straight.
the hair's
and
too
they're doing
straight.
stuff
Yeah,
intelligent.
Yeah,
it
but
might
you
also
see,
be a
we're
dude.
cutting the fiberglass fabric, and you lay
Boy,
it
this is
down on
built
there and
to
get it all
be very
spread out.
some of the skyscrapers are called.
I-Chele, when did you ever call him then, as you did with us on the phone the first time, Peter Pizer?
We called him Peter Pizer. Yeah, we did. We called him Peter sometimes, or Pizer, or Peter Pizer. It was all interchangeable.
So book club
Is
said
that Mark
something.
Barron there?
I'm
I mean, it's
sorry.
not because I. Did you ever tell me that was Mark Barron up there putting up the
No,
final?
No.
No.
no. In fact, I think I was told that that was Victor G.
Oh, I remember Victor. He was.
He's Tommy's
I remember
brother-in-law.
Victor.
Kathy G's brother.
He was Asian. He was
There's Lisa.
Tommy's brother-in-law. There's Lisa.
I thought that was
Lisa Rifkin?
yeah,
that
that's Rifkin. That's Rifkin.
Yeah, this is Lisa Rifkin. That was Lisa
Now,
Rifkin.
this was the original thing that made me look a little bit askance because Bucky 72. So this was political, right? So this was what made me think, was there a political ideology being pushed here? Because here they are, Bucky for president in 72. So this was this was anti-Nixon. Listen, not that I love Nixon or anything. I actually don't know the first thing about him really. Couldn't care less one way or the other about Nixon. But you know, this looks like, you know, this is what made me originally think, well, I wonder what they're pushing here on the kids. Did they ever get
right? And
political
I
with
know
you?
those. I know you had those thoughts. Now, did Bucky ever really run for president?
No,
He
this
didn't.
was probably just a
So this was like
counterculture.
you know, a poster
Even
made sort of an admiration, like this
Yeah,
guy's
taking
so
the
brilliant.
yeah,
right.
even today they put up the name of somebody, so and so for president. He'd be better, or she'd be better than all the garbage
Right.
today.
But regardless of all that, guys, it's still overtly political. And so, you know, I have a little problem with that because it's indoctrination. Now, you were
But
only
I would
14.
not have thought of that as political. Truly, I can't agree with you that that was political.
Okay.
But you see, I agree with the both of you, and I'm not trying to be nice and satisfy everyone. I don't see it as political because of the cultural icon that it becomes through the ages. But I see what Manny means, because it was back then that that type of image started to appear
Lisa.
Right.
of leading people in and saying, listen, we need a new idea, we need something new. And then they're led further into a subversive political area. From my political philosophy point of view, I-Chele, do you remember any politics there at all?
I don't. I do not.
Here
Right.
is
Really
so
don't.
here's the acid trip ending.
At this point,
I totally
dark
agree
out
with
and the dome's
Book
being
Club
lit up by
Warrior.
those.
Hold on, what'd you say?
I'm seeing a post of Book Club Warrior that we you know, it's this combination of well, she's saying we must listen and digest everything that's brought forward. We also have to remove tinfoil hats and the sunglasses that we view the world with today.
Right. Right.
Uh-huh.
So here's the acid trip ending. This is one of my favorite endings of all time. I have to say, this is actually a really well produced movie. Clearly, some money was behind this movie. All right, let's carry on.
Lights. It's more than all the technical garbage that we've been running around with and yelling, and the struts and the A's and B's and C's and
Oh, hold on. Are you hearing? She's saying it's more than just the A's and the B's and the C's and the struts.
Mhm.
You know, she's saying it's more than the building.
Right. Who was that talking?
I am not sure. I am not sure.
And look at these
She
beautiful.
wasn't someone she wasn't. I'm not recalling who she is.
Right. Look at these
That
beautiful
Lisa on
old.
the swinging seat smoking.
I know it's a shame, but you know,
No, I don't mean smoking dope or anything. Was that Lisa that we saw, the last girl?
no, I
Sitting-
don't think that was Lisa Rifkin. I don't think that was her.
No, that was definitely not Lisa Rifkin.
And I don't remember Lisa smoking cigarettes. Not that she didn't, but I don't recall her smoking cigarettes.
And it's more than all those people coming in and saying, isn't it wonderful and good for the community? And all the rest that they're saying, which is fine and good, and they're enthusiastic and happy, but it's more than that now. It's poetry and it's music and it's bigger than all of us, and it's all of us in there and all those nails that each of us hit in, and it's amazing and very moving. God, I don't believe it.
Now, can we pause here real quick?
Let's just admit that person was on acid.
You know what? She sounds level-headed to me. I mean, she was saying it's more than all of this. It's more than it being just amazing things. When she said, this is our poetry, this is our music. I mean, I could have cried when they showed the dome and she said that, because that's what it was. It was, you know, it was that. Now, the reason why I wanted to pause was when you all did your watching the movie and talking to each other about it, you know, that I watched.
Right.
Eric, you said at the end that was very sad what she said. And I didn't understand why that was sad.
I'll tell you why. Because it's beautiful. Now, if I'm confusing you, let me tell you, it's like somebody trying to be a geometrist but isn't complete with their mathematics. They needed help to make them focus outside of this world properly. Where was the church? Where were religious people saying, let us help you?
Why? Religion is for at home.
The support was not there. They needed more of an authentic, mystical outlook.
I-Chele?
I'm confused.
Eric, I-Chele's confused.
All right. There definitely was a breakdown in society. Nothing is one-dimensional. This took place because there was a breakdown. And in my opinion, the wrong people took the reins or grabbed the bull by the horns. And these young people with these beautiful, innocent ideas were manipulated. That's my opinion. And the proper people should have been there to help them, to show them the real beauty of life. And they were like caught in a figure eight. There was no outlet.
Well, the thing is if you would think about a lot of these kids that we're watching now, including me, what everyone's grown up and done, it's a lot of art, music, theater, books written. I mean, it's not like, people really flourished, continue to flourish. You know, we don't have a whole lot of terrible stories. I mean, John Rosen, love and respect. We know he committed suicide way later than this. And John Rosen, by the way, he has one book out that I got reminded of that maybe you want to look up. It's called Streets, and it's full of photographs he took. And darn it, I don't think I'm in it, and I should have. He took a lot of photos.
It's called
Streets.
We definitely got to check that out.
You got to look. You got to see what you can find about that.
Spell that, honey. Freaks.
No, STREETS.
Oh, streets. Okay.
Yeah, it could have sounded like that.
So we're here at the end of the movie. So, wow, this is amazing.
See, Eric, that's one thing is it seems like you're seeing this sort of dystopian kind of, like when you say, where was the religion? There's churches everywhere. There's rabbis and temples. That's for at home. These guys, actually, if they would have been talking religion to us, I think that would have been inappropriate.
Well, I think that I look at it from this perspective. At that point in history, the religious institutions were declining and had gone to pot.
Oh, okay. And I don't know if I don't really even know my opinion of that
Right.
for that time. But it was such a time of like we wanted something else, you know? We wanted something besides all that average stuff. It's like, and that works for a lot of people. Like, it's religion is and spiritual stuff helps guide us. But it's like there was plenty of that already.
I think
And it wouldn't have been appropriate for Scott Redmond or Pizer to be, talking to us.
No,
They
I don't
weren't.
mean them. I don't mean them.
Oh,
I would
okay.
have preferred holy mystical men working with them instead of these psychiatrists and psychologists whom I consider to be dangerous, legalized felons and criminals.
Okay. And then that's a whole other debate.
we're
We
going to
might
be here
need to
all.
get a panel together
We might need
because
to schedule another show.
And I'm
we
not
might
against you. I
schedule
agree with you. It's complicated, but I'm also looking at it historiographically. Look at our world today. Look at what's happened now.
I think.
right,
Go
but
ahead.
look at all the good that's happening too. I mean, there's a lot of crap and there's some really good because the instinct is to save ourselves, life longs for itself. That's a
Right.
quote from the prophet.
You're true, I-Chele. You're true, but I'm looking at my friend. His horticulture business, a biologist, a botanist, ruined for freedom.
Oh, he's talking
Well,
about
now,
me.
I'm
I
talking
want to
about
understand
Lenny.
more of your story of that. And the thing is like when something bad happens here, it's like we have to be able to kind of see each thing for
Right.
now. The subject of whether psychologists and psychiatrists studying us, if there were, I had no idea. It would be easy for me to not know. Of course.
Right. And
I
I
mean,
think
it's so easy to not know what's going on.
right.
in
And
the
I
back.
think that's probably what we're going to find. I think if there were again, Richie said that we're talking about experiments. I think the dome was an experiment, but not that there were actual experiments going on. I think the dome itself, the project itself, was an experiment. That's just my opinion. But there's no way that you kids would have known this because that wasn't the point, to let you know. The
Right,
point
we
was to
wouldn't.
study you. Right.
That's
If
just
that was going
Yeah.
on.
out,
But
man.
hey,
What made it sad for me
Hold on,
is the innocence that saw beauty, and there wasn't enough help for that innocence.
right, but hey, I mean, I'm an example of just everything about that. I mean, my wheels were turning in that time period. That was an amazing experience for me. That was huge in making me who I am today.
Oh, sure. I don't look at everybody as one heap. You're an individual and you had a very different life from them. But I just want to say one thing to book club. Holy mystical men do not abuse children. It's people who pretend to be holy and mystical who abuse. The wolf in sheep's clothing.
Right. And we know they can come in
Anywhere.
Exactly. All right, guys, listen, I got a boogie. This was an amazing show. And before we leave, we want to let the audience know that I-Chele has all her tunes on YouTube. In fact, let's play this.
Yeah.
Hey, play that song you were playing
All right.
before.
Song I recorded. This is a single called Music Playa. I recorded it.
Hold on, let me lower the volume a little bit because
Okay.
what were you saying, I-Chele?
This is a single called Music Playa, and I recorded it in New York City. And
What happened
it's a song I'd love to just say goodbye to everybody with. And I want to remind you to spell
You're gonna have to start that over, I-Chele, because we couldn't hear you.
In her voice.
Okay. So for anyone who wants to find my music, I'm on SoundCloud. I'm all over YouTube. SoundCloud, you'll find 2 of my albums for sure. YouTube has all kinds of stuff. Some better than others. But this song playing, it's a song I'd like to say goodbye to.
We're having trouble hearing you now.
Music Playa. Oh.
This is called Music Playa. Yeah, Music Playa featuring
Music
Lenky
Playa.
Don and Zé Luis. You know, my real name is Luis. So,
Oh, all right.
so there we go. I'm Luis Manuel Grossman.
Oh, I wondered what Manny was from.
Yeah, I'm half Puerto Rican and half Jewish. I
Oh
may be.
man,
I listen. I
what's
may be.
dinner like at your house?
Listen, I may be the janitor, but I own the building.
I can tell you one thing, I-Chele. I'm not as conservative or what they call a straight guy as you think. You don't know my life.
Oh no, I can tell you're a cosmic cowboy.
I'm a what?
You're a cosmic cowboy.
Yeah.
That's a certain. Yeah.
All right,
No,
guys.
you're
Well,
a very deep thinker. You're a deep thinker,
And
and
you're a
it's good.
beautiful person because you show strength. You show a great deal of strength. And I just want to say this. I sent a text to Lisa Rifkin. She said, text me this weekend, which is this weekend. But
Oh,
she's not answering me after that show where Richard Stein left a big comment and I answered him. It's unfortunate. And I don't know why I have a compassion for that woman, and we're very different. We would be like two fighting cocks.
that didn't sound right.
Cock fighting.
That didn't sound right either.
right, but you would be having animated discussions.
Well,
we hope
call her for us. Tell her to
Listen.
get in touch with me again.
Well, she's not in
if I
touch
get
with.
the chance, maybe
Yeah.
she'll see this, and
That's what
we
we're
can
hoping. We're hoping that when people see this, they will come forward and realize we're not really that bad. We're not really that bad, guys. What we're doing is we're trying to find, well, the whole story, not just what was in the Riverdale Press. And of course, having people like you, I-Chele, is absolutely critical to that. So listen, we got to run. Eric, last words, please.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you on, I-Chele. It's almost as if it's a cleansing because we love every show we do, but you're such a you're probably maybe the most joyful person who's been on since I premiered August 23rd. But I just want to say one last question with Pizer. Did you ever hear him referred to as a mental health person instead of a street worker, youth worker, or community worker?
Not that I recall.
Okay,
but
good.
But yeah, I don't recall that.
Very good.
All right, I-Chele, please say your last words to the audience and listen.
Right.
Well, I just want to say while you're on the air, I just want to say that you always have a forum here. You always are welcome on our airwaves anytime you want. If we ever say anything that you want to have at it with us, you have carte blanche. Okay, you are fantastic, and we loved having you on here. So let the audience know your last words.
Okay, I want to say to everybody, shine your light, and let's make this world beautiful for our children, their children, and all the ones coming. My name is I-Chele, and that's how you'll find me on Facebook. My music's on SoundCloud, on YouTube, and what I bring is musical love. MUSICA1LOVE. Music love.
Well,
and
on that.
So that's it. Stay in your light.
All right, I-Chele. I'm going to take both of you guys out. Please stick around so we can say goodbye off the air. All right. Thank you so much. This was a great show. I'll be right back with you guys. All right, guys. Well, that was an epic one. And I can't believe it went so long. I was expecting an hour. We went over 2 hours. I think that I deserve, well, a night of relaxation at this point. But what a great time we had with I-Chele. We are so happy she joined us today. We are absolutely 100% into this very healthy debate that we've had. Eric and I have our perspectives that are, of course, informed through our biases and our filters and our lenses. And of course, we do have some historical facts backing us up, given what we found in the newspapers. But it always pays to get people firsthand oral histories and testimonies. And we are so happy that I-Chele was the first to come on our airwaves. And I have to say that I hope it's not the last. So on behalf of I-Chele and Eric, I want to say thank you so much, everyone out there, for your positivity and your great energy. And And we will see you at the next show next week. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care.